Hello, Maya. Just in time, Maya. How are you? Can you hear Maya?
No, she can't.
She can't hear. Maya Farinas? No, she can't hear yet.
Maya.
Yeah, I couldn't hear for a while, but I'm good now. I can hear.
Great.
I just thought no one was talking.
Well, to our guests, we just all got the technology and all got online just in time for everybody, and we'll go ahead and start. I want to welcome everybody to our Talkback for A Bright New Boise, our town hall. I realize that some of you may have seen the show and some of you may have not. Before we start, I just want to show you a little bit. My name's Steve Alexander. I am with Willamette Theater. And before we start, I just want to show you a little bit about if you've done a webinar or not. You'll notice at the bottom of your screen, there's the menu bar, and there's a new button that shows up in the webinars that isn't in the other ones that says Q&A. And if you open that, you'll see that there is a place that you can ask questions. Does one of the people, one of the guests want to type in something to the Q&A just so that we can see if it's working? It's going to get it can be a question or a statement or anything. Just want to see that we're communicating there. There we go. Hi, Marilyn. Hello, Ms. Gail Steck. How are you? Oh, Gail says hello to Rachel. So I'm gonna assume that these are both successfully answered questions. Greetings, everybody. We are in the middle of our recorded broadcast, which is going to be continuing until the 26th of the month. So that's going to be through this Friday. And there may be some people that have not seen the show. So we're going to do it. We're going to try not to spoil the show. I don't know if there's a way to really spoil the show because we'd have to go too far in depth for it. But let's go around and introduce ourselves. Let's start with the director and then go through the actors, our stage manager, and designers.
Okay, I'm Jonathan Cole. I'm the theater department chair and the director of this production.
And just pop in, actors. Be rude.
I'm very rude.
Oh.
Hey, kid. I'm I'm Truman, an actor in Willamette, theater major and senior. Played well.
I'm Gabriel, and I played Alex.
I'm Katie, she, her. I am a senior theater major and scholarship student at Willamette, and I played Pauline.
And I'm Shelby. My pronouns are they, them, theirs. I played Leroy, and I'm a senior scholarship student major person.
Hi, I'm Maya. I'm a sophomore theater major. I use she, her pronouns, and I played Anna.
And our stage manager is?
Hi, I'm Brooke. I use she, they pronouns. I am a junior theater major, and I'm the stage manager.
And then we have three of our designers with us as well, if you wanted to roll off there.
Chris Harris, scene designer.
I'm Blanca Forsan, lighting designer.
Rachel Kinsman-Stack, sound designer.
Excellent. And with that Q&A, make sure to ask any questions. We'll be filling a little bit of space in advance, but one of the big things we want to do is hear what it is that you have, even if it's a comment about the show that you've seen, a question about it coming up, any problems that you had, or any extra information that you want in it. That's what we really love to do, is to engage with our audience on this one. Let's just start out for people that might not have seen the show. What is A Bright New Boise? What's it about? What is this play? John, do you have? Can you help us with that?
Yeah, absolutely. So the play is really, it's a pretty touching story about a father who's trying to reconnect with his son after a long period of time and after a series of very strange events. And that very normal, very everyday story is complicated by the lead character, Will, who's played by Truman, by his extreme religious beliefs. So the play takes a sort of even-handed look at what happens when someone with that kind of belief structure tries to engage with normal everyday life, as exemplified through the backstage of a Hobby Lobby.
What's the title? Bright New Boise. Where does that title come from that you can tell? And this can be up for anybody. Where do you think?
Yeah,
that
cast. Anybody want to address that one?
kind of pointing that toward Gabriel, honestly.
Oh, yeah. All right. Yeah, for sure, bro. Yeah. I mean, it's set in Boise, so that's one element. And then another one is that, I mean, Will's beliefs happen to be very like apocalyptic. So there's, to me at least, I thought about, you know, a brand new born again kind of vibe. You know, that was at least my interpretation.
Yeah, there's a lot of imagery of sort of cleansing the world with light. So renewal through light or brightness.
I think there's also a level of irony to it. If we're taking the Bright New Boise to be the current Boise of that the play is set in, because there is also some comment on American culture and American capitalism, and on kind of the ways in which the American myth glorifies its own existence. And there's this kind of through line of this is the bright new Boise. This is the bright world that we're all living in. We're in this harshly lit, horrible Hobby Lobby break room, and none of us care about why we're here.
It was very nicely lit, though. I just want to say that.
Yes, it was beautiful. Just in the world of the play, it's horrible fluorescence.
And you know, since we went on lights, I'm going to run with that just a little bit because we have our lighting designer here. So we have this break room at a Hobby Lobby, and I've never seen a break room that has any more than 2 settings of light on and off. And then there's also outside, out back at nighttime. So Blanca, what do you do when you get? How do you wake yourself up when you're doing a play that has fluorescent lights in a break room and outside with a light? I mean, how do you handle that? How do you can you expand on what's there, or do you have to be careful about the play and how far you go? Or so I know you did a little bit more than just white lights.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's very interesting to feel the light more than just see the set or the actors. And doesn't mean, don't take me wrong, the actors, they are not important, they are. But the lights make something in the audience to feel more than they can. Maybe not in that moment, but the homework gonna work to feel something. So normally I design the natural thing, like inside room, outside room, night, moon, things like that. But then I make up a little bit more the feelings inside of the characters. So that's why all the time can change the feeling.
So you're saying that your lights often come from inside the character?
Yes.
And showing how they go up from outside there?
Correct.
What was it? I know when I was in college, every time I did a show, I would always try to, I don't know if this is just a selfish thing to do or whether it's something that every actor does, but I always tried to say to myself, why am I in this play now? What was it that made me and this play come together? And try to learn the lesson of the play. Does that happen to any of you actors? Do you ever have this thing like, what am I learning from this play and how can I change from it? And if so, Was there anything about Boise that happened, or was it just a bunch of words that you can leave behind?
I think it's helped me gain perspective on a part of the world that I have some experience in, but not much. I come from a place that's smaller than Boise, but very close to. I'm from Eastern Washington, so it's different, but also more similar to Boise than Salem would be. And I guess because we are living in a time that is so polarized politically and ideologically, it has helped gain perspective. Like if you were to present me with a guy like Will, just regular old any day, I would be automatically just dislike someone like that, someone that has that extreme of religious views. But I think this play is really helpful on gaining perspective of the humanity in all of us and the humanity behind what people believe in. And everyone just wants to believe in something. So that's what I'd take away.
Will, how do you make peace with a character like that? I mean, that was one of the more off-center people, and I usually see you as a more centered kind of person. So, I mean, how do you get that guy to live in his skin? Is it creepy? Is it weird? Or
it was, I think, in one of our first meetings as a cast when we started production, one of the first things I said is that I hated him. Because me as I am I'll say that the type of person I am and the type of person that I think Will is, historically, we have not gotten along together very well. I did not appreciate the way he tried to talk to his son. I did not appreciate the way he refused to be flexible. But for me, this kind of a joint answer of that question, the last one about what we took away, Will had this completely unchanging and solid as stone belief in what he thought was salvation and what he thought was essentially the best ending for everyone. A little bit, he wanted everyone to be saved. He used to try and convert people, and so what really brought me into living with this character that initially I disliked intensely was this idea of hope. And then how even at the end of the play, when he has now lost, we're not going to spoil it. I won't spoil it. But throughout the play,
we know. Good. Something happens in the plot.
Something happens in the plot. Amazingly, the plot happens, and then things change on screen. It's riveting to watch. I recommend giving theater a try. He has this very deep and profound belief in what he believes in and in trying to get the best outcome. And for me, in the end, that's where it all came down to, was trying to connect with people while sticking to your guns and sticking to your belief. And that is something that I can vastly get behind. It was actually a little hard in the end to get rid of him because I'd gotten so kind of attached to, even though I disagreed with some of the ways that he went about his life, letting go of someone who cared so deeply. I wanted to do him justice and have fun. And I feel like throughout the process, I really started to see myself in him and reflect on how I can bring myself fully and what I think and believe fully into my life. So that was a very important part of the aspect of rehearsals and the whole production to me. No.
Right on.
I think one thing I took away, besides like a lot of like writing cues from, because that's definitely what I'm interested in, is in writing and producing, and I really like Hunter's writing, so I took note of it. But I also think the one thing I took away was that like it was very useful to. Alex is 17, spoilers. No. He's a child, and so, playing a child and understanding that they have a limited amount of agency, understanding, and even like motive of their own. I mean, I'm 21 and I still struggle to understand what my motivation and like understanding of my reality is, right? So like at 17, it's even less. So playing that competently with objective was interesting, because like with an adult, you can create a lot more background and stuff, but his lifetime was a lot shorter. And so therefore trying to also just like trying to be a teenager. I tend to be, before I cut my hair and shaved my beard, I mean, Truman and I are around the same age. So we definitely, in fact, the costume designer told me I had to, in order to look even remotely 17. So that was also fun. I haven't been 17 for 5 years. So it was a very cathartic experience.
Did you want to be 17 again, or are you done with it now?
Oh, hell no. I mean, nobody wants to be 17 more than once. I didn't even want to be 17 the one time.
Yeah, well, John Cougar Mellencamp did say hold on to 16 as long as you can. So he must have known that 17 is not the one to hang on to. So
no, not really.
Shelby, what strikes you? It's hard for me to recognize the Shelby that I see in real life, and then to think of the Leroy that I have seen in real life, and see those two people in the same space. So how did you find the way to live with Leroy?
Honestly, the first impression that I had of this show immediately drew me to Leroy. I just loved him from the moment that I read the show. And I've never really had the opportunity to play a role that I was immediately passionate about. So this show has been exciting for me from the start. But Leroy's like very interesting because I think all of these characters show their humanity through their flaws. And that's sort of something that they have that unifies them, is that none of them are perfect in very different ways. And yeah, Leroy comes in like halfway through the show just to like stir stuff up. He basically comes in just to stir the pot, and in every scene he's in, there's some sort of catalyst moment. So it was really just fun to bring in all that energy, and to sort of channel all the frustration and anger and agitation that I've had just living in the world right now. I was able to channel a lot of really rather raw feelings into Leroy. And it was challenging in a lot of ways, but partly because Gabe and I were playing brothers who were very like intimately connected as brothers, and we didn't get to like contact each other. Like I couldn't like ever put a hand on his shoulder or like rub his head or something, like none of those brotherly things that I think we would have been able to explore in a different context. So it was actually also a challenge and exciting to get to explore physical intimacy at a distance. I love Leroy. He's very flawed, but I love him.
What fascinates me about Leroy is you always have the troublemaker characters out there in the world, but Leroy not just admits that he's a troublemaker, but will go so far as to say, "Oh yeah, I've just been making trouble. I've been trying to throw you off balance," or what is it, the one I'm intentionally trying to help me out with that?
I'm deliberately making you uncomfortable. That's a very
I mean, that's like the hidden subtext that nobody ever usually says as a character. Although
yeah, and a lot of it that I found exploring his characters, that it comes from insecurity. He's very outspoken and very intelligent, but also very insecure and tries to make up for it in a lot of different ways and projects onto people So like in some ways he comes off as very confident and overpowering, but it's, I think, a mask for a lot of the things that he doesn't feel so secure about. And again, just playing into the humanity in all of them coming from their all of their insecurities and imperfections.
And it seems like a mask that Leroy can't even take off. That there's even times in which peace should happen and everybody wants peace to happen, and Leroy just can't let it happen. He's gonna continue to stir it up, you know? So
yeah, he can't stay silent. I mean, he just kind of wanted people to face the facts in the room, whether or not the facts, they were facts that he believed in. He just wanted everyone to communicate, I think.
So Maya, what is your takeaway from the play? You kind of came into the play a little differently, didn't you?
I did, yeah. I was initially the assistant director of this production, and then our actress, who was originally cast to play Anna, had to leave the production probably 2 weeks out from opening, something like that. So I stepped into the role because I had been like in the room, and the assistant director position is a little less necessary than something like a stage manager. So I stepped into the acting process a little bit late, but even before that, I was thinking about kind of the themes of the play from a more omniscient perspective, I guess. And I think the thing about this play, I went into it a little bit in our last one of these, that resonates with me the most in kind of the place I am in my life, is the exploration of how the ideology of apocalypse interacts with human life and human well-being. Because I think that where Will is in his life, one of his biggest hurdles toward achieving happiness and a relationship with his son is this deep and abiding belief that the world is going to end, and this kind of disdain for what the world is. And kind of grappling with that ideology and that belief in this brave new world that we're all living in, where pessimism is very in vogue, was kind of very affirming for me as I guess an optimist, which feels like a weird thing to call myself.
An optimist as you, Maya the optimist, or
yes,
Anna the optimist, or both and?
Anna is interesting to me because in this play, every character is grappling with an existence that is not inherently meaningful. There is not a like definitive, yes, your life has meaning. Like for any of us, we have to find it for ourselves. And so Will turns to his religion, Leroy turns to his art, Pauline turns to her job, Alex is flailing because he's at that age where he's trying to figure it out. Anna, in my view, is the only character in the play who is okay with the fact that there is no inherent meaning to her life. So she has the ability to kind of sit in the abyss and read a book.
Made me think about a quote that a guy named Rob Campbell once wrote, which he said that our modern self there's an intimate acknowledgement that there is no true centered self, that the modern self is a fluid fiction. And it just sounds like you're the one that's the most okay with it, because yeah, it does seem like there is more than one extremism that's happening. I kind of I kind of like the corporate extremism myself, though. I mean, I've worked in corporate land, and boy, do I just recognize Pauline a lot. Have you had a Pauline in your life, Katie, that you could draw upon?
Yes, so I also have experience in corporate land. I have worked retail for a while. And I think at least my Pauline is based off of managers I've had in the past. Specifically one particular one. That was just very like, you live to work. You are going to come to work. You are going to work for me. If I call you in, you will be coming. It is not an option.
And no definition except you as worker to that person then.
Yeah, but I do think Pauline, I do think deep down she really does care about people, but I do think that she has forgotten about that, and at this point she just wants to, like, work is the thing that she's currently doing, so she's gonna throw her whole self into it. And because she has, like, she's done all of this for Hobby Lobby, so she just wants, like, Hobby Lobby, like, the workers to, like, pick up the pace and, like, meet her where she is. But I do think that it's definitely Pauline feels lonely in her own life, and a place where she can define meaning and companionship is either in the superficial conversations she has with customers in order to push merchandise, or in the conversations she has with her employees in order to make the workplace run more smoothly. So I think she's super interesting, and I think I definitely think she tried to do stand-up comedy in the 90s. I know that wasn't the question. But I know she for sure tried and failed and then went back to doing retail.
I hadn't even thought about family until you mentioned it right here. Does Pauline, in your head, do you have a significant other or children or an ex that you hide from when you see them driving down the park?
Yeah, Pauline is for sure divorced. She's for sure divorced. She's currently having an affair with a married man. It's very emotionally unavailable. There's really no emotions involved. She has a pet bird, so she can have someone to talk to, like a pet to talk to, but nothing to cuddle, because she's not a cuddly person. But yeah, I think she's very emotionally unavailable. But she's very divorced.
I'm going to read a comment that someone just threw up. One of our patrons. It's just a comment about the script. Setting the play in a Hobby Lobby, which is a very controversial company because of religious issues and dealing with themes of religion, made me wonder why the writer didn't just use the Hobby Lobby almost as a character in itself. I think it was a missed opportunity on the part of the writer. Use the Hobby Lobby as a character in itself. If you wanted to add to that, are you talking about actually a physically walking around speaking character named Hobby Lobby, or a person like Green who runs the Hobby Lobby? Just wondering how you interpret that as Hobby Lobby as a character in itself. Just making it a central piece.
I'm going to jump in there. So Susan, yeah, absolutely. I think you're onto something, and I think it may have been something that we should have hit harder in production, because I feel like there's no question when you walk into a Hobby Lobby, or if you've ever Googled anything about particularly their CEO, that figure, that specter, you could say, is definitely part of the fabric of the whole thing. And it's definitely something, I don't know, we should let the cast talk about this too, because it was something that was always in my head as the fabric of that, like what that thing was on the other side of the wall that Pauline was constantly in service to. But yeah, maybe there should have been something that we brought forward in the production elements too, just to keep that as part of our part of that fabric or that reference to that very, very strange company.
I'll leap in first since I gotta go in a few minutes to I have a screenwriting class, so I gotta shoot off. But I think in a way, Hobby Lobby is represented by corporate, this like entity that that I'm sure Katie will speak on it, that Pauline always brings up, but is also a very dismissive element. And I think that's very key to the whole nature of franchising in general, which I think is really what is part of what's talked about, is that Pauline can only exist as Pauline as long as it's a franchise business and as long as it's like an open department. And corporate only exists so much as she sends employee paperwork. She makes up shit all the time. She says, oh, this won't go down with corporate, but it only happens if she tells them. Nobody's going to check, So it's like this idea of it's her space. And I think the idea of like the Hobby Lobby being a character is like, I mean, they're empty and and it's really the people like that fill it that are worth paying attention to, because as they say, everything else is cheap or 99 cents. And from my perspective, at least, unless you've got the founder there, or, unless you're really, I think with the focus of the play being about an outsider coming in and that Will is our protagonist, it kind of makes sense for this place to be so devoid. That, and there's some surrealist elements to the play to make it kind of stretchy.
I could throw in one thought that was scenically, I had seen designs where they had made a very large overhanging frame beyond the set of the Hobby Lobby with the logo, big. And it was, I was toying with it, but in fact, from a budget standpoint, so it was that presence. But from a budget standpoint, and because of the build crew was so cut short and diminished, I chose not to pursue it. What I did do was plaster the place with little Hobby Lobby directives about do this and do this and do this. At Hobby Lobby, we care for you, all over the walls. But I don't think that had the same presence as something big over the top, beyond the roof, beyond the seat, shining down saying Hobby Lobby, to make it a presence just in graphics. So I think in one sense that we may have missed out on.
I actually think, sorry, Katie, I think kind of combining both of those points, that I am, I'm kind of interested by the fact that Hobby Lobby is kind of an insidious presence rather than an overarching one in our world, because I think I do fundamentally agree with Gabe that this play isn't really about Hobby Lobby as a corporation, as an entity. It's about this Hobby Lobby and the people who are in it. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. What I was gonna say, because I did a lot of research into Hobby Lobby for this role, and I think their company values, it's really, really interesting because they're very big on treating every single employee like they're a member of their family, because it's owned, Hobby Lobby was started as a framing business by a husband and wife, David Green, and I'm forgetting the name of the woman, which is kind of indicative, but we don't have time to unpack all that. And like corporately, even though in the play it mentions that the minimum wage for starting out is $7.25, which is Boise, that's the minimum wage in Boise. Actually, Hobby Lobby as a company has taken strides, like huge strides, into raising their base minimum wage for their employees, and they have really good like health benefits and stuff, which is really interesting because then you are met all around with this atmosphere of you're a member of this family and we love you. And then as soon as you start to, yes, thank you for the mission statement, John. When you start to get into anecdotes of like former employees and the way they've been treated when something has been revealed to the other employees that deviates from the norm, and then there's like a slow like ostracization and almost like a slow burn out. Like I've read some anecdotes about specifically this one woman who she worked at Hobby Lobby, and all of her managers and her fellow employees were so lovely and welcoming to her. And then when they found out that she was pagan, they slowly started inching her out of the schedule and then basically like fired her for like a baloney reason and like took her pins and did not give back. Like it was a whole thing. So I think in a way the hypocrisy of Hobby Lobby, the way of, yes, we are family, but it's not a unconditional love, which I think is pretty indicative of also where Will is at in this need for like to hold down these like core Christian values of being like kind and having complete faith in God. But when it comes to something that isn't within that, there isn't that acceptance. So yeah.
That gets to the follow-up question from Gail too, and Chris's answer. But I think it's really interesting also that Will doesn't choose to work at Hobby Lobby, or actually maybe Truman can answer this, but did you go to Hobby Lobby looking for a job, or did you go there because your kid was there?
Because my kid was there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So within that, then, if that's the supposition, we've got this incredibly religious, sort of performatively religious company in there, and we've also got this whole discussion about what mega churches are, or what the commodification of religion has become, and then we have a religious fundamentalist more or less coming into the midst of all of that. And so Hobby Lobby, I think, in several ways, is functioning as this thing that we can sort of push upon. So sure, it's a religious company, but Pauline's execution of those values is pretty far outside of at least Will's version of the observation of religion, right? And then these other metaphysical or I don't know, these other discussions about what life means and how we relate to each other and all that are framed within this religious context because of that setting, certainly, and driven by Will. But I think it's really interesting. This is great. I wish let's do the play again. I think it's some really interesting stuff that like Chris said, I think maybe we could have leaned in on some of this a little farther. We missed a few of these things, I think, in our attempts to play the people, and that backstage environment is sort of a microcosm rather than keeping that context really clear in ours and the audience's minds. So we'll see. For those of you who haven't seen it yet, we'll see if that lands.
At the same time, there's always, for each of the people, there is that extreme organization that is just off stage and never seen. So while we don't see the Hobby Lobby, even though it's just on the other side of the wall, Will's church is just on the other side of the state. And Cindy and John, the alcoholic parents, are just on the other side of the town. And Anna's father and brothers. I mean, when you talk about not seeing the Hobby Lobby, I started thinking suddenly about all the other characters that are extremely crucial, that define and make people make choices when they're not even there, that are also just on the other side of the wall, but they're still active in the in making the action happen on stage. Yeah, it could be fun to kind of have one of those noises offsets where you get to see it. It could be fun. It would be fun to build a Hobby Lobby set on stage, but that would be 2 times the play, I'm sure. So, Rachel, tell us a little bit about the sound design that you worked with for the show. I know that this was a little bit of extra challenge because it was not only a sound design for a theater space, but you also had to do a sound design for a live stream on video. How did that play out?
Not as successfully as I would have liked. Thanks, Stephen. No.
A good or bad, but that's fine.
Yeah. So the sound, similarly to Blanca, like you're in a specific space, and so sound is trying to support the space, right? And the understanding of the space and how the space is used. And then simultaneously, kind of mixed within those naturalistic sounds, there was an attempt to think about the emotions and the environment of the characters, and to support the characters kind of in helping to with their energy and their emotions. And so it was a very layered sound process until we got to the live stream and turned on the microphones and realized that it just sounds like white noise online, and lacked any of the depth and character that were in the space. And so we had to balance the in-space work with what you could hear online in order for us to have auditory hearing. So if I were to do this again, the key is not to have a whole bunch of white noise layered when we're working with online and live stream materials. So it was great in the first few days of tech, and then realizing that the sound wasn't transferring well to the live stream was an interesting challenge to overcome. And I'm not sure that we found exactly the right balance, but definitely something, an incredible learning opportunity for me as I move forward and figuring out how to do two things simultaneously, so in two different mediums.
Yeah, and it is such a different medium. I remember my first video that I ever made when I was like, oh, hey, let's make a play on video. Yeah, we can do this really well. And so I set it in, a diner, and the entire time all you heard was knives and forks clattering, because we don't think about how that translates to video. We're so used to suppressing it and hearing a voice in real life. So yeah, you're doing simultaneous media. That's kind of bizarre. So yeah. Question from one of our people. I'm curious about how COVID affected this production. Obviously the masks, the hand sanitizers on the table, which I found humorous, etc. Brooke, you're our stage manager. You had to ask for all of those things. What was how did COVID work into this?
Yeah, it factored a lot into like the setup and prep of the space, specifically because we have protocol that we follow. Tegan, my assistant stage manager, we spent a lot of time kind of setting up the space and making sure that we would sanitize everything before the actors came in. And that would include things like props once we had props brought into the space. And that was kind of a lot of elements that we had to deal with so that the show could run as efficiently as it did. I think that we found along the way certain things that worked better for us and certain things that worked better kind of as a collective. Kind of the one being like the use of the tables and the chairs was as a big constant between the actors, and making sure that those were clean for actors as they moved them throughout the space was really important. Other than that, when we first started this process, we had a lot of management of like physical space, because it was, at least for me, the first time I had been in a rehearsal space for over a year. So kind of making sure that everyone in the room was very aware of kind of the 6 feet protocol that we have, and kind of showing everyone ways to navigate that space.
Chris, the lines on the ground, the grid on the ground, was that a part of you guys' measurements on how far to stay apart from each other? I was just wondering. I know that during the last show, the memo, that one could actually use those to figure out the distance. I mean, was that a part of your measurement, or were you just gauging measurement as you had created the staging?
No, actually, it was deliberately a part of the design for the memorandum.
Mm-hmm.
But in fact, it was in response to Mia's comment, because she had been involved in that production, that they found that very helpful, that I then folded it in. Basically, I just dropped what was there for the grid down onto the floor and tweaked it in a different direction. So it was in response to an actor's request, really, a performance request, saying this is helpful for us in terms of spacing. So I folded it in as part of a design element.
I know that you all also incorporated some of our lifetime habits in there, like the not shaking the hand for somebody that you've just hired, for example. Was that something that came from above, or did you guys discover that amongst yourselves along the way?
That particular thing is something that I just, like, Truman and I just, like, started doing. And then, personally, I thought it was funny. So then I kept doing it. Yeah. A lot of the decisions that I've made on my own about Pauline's character have been, do I think this is funny? Do I think this is insidious?
Mm-hmm.
If the answer is yes, it passes to the next level.
Well, also having that at the beginning, you set the contract up for us. Like, we are living now in a time in which we try to reach for a hand, but realize we can't. So there was the contract, and okay, we can just live with that contract for the rest of the show. So let's just wind up. If anybody has any fun tales to tell about the experience or working on the show.
I just want to say something about all the work is behind the faces we have here, because for example, Brooke, oh my God, without Brooke, we can do this. I mean, all the stage managers are really important, because if they are not there, we don't have lights in time, sound in time, actors in time, props and seat, anything. So I think it's very, very important to, maybe next chat, I don't know, but we had to talk about all the people is behind, because it's a lot of people. I mean, more than 3 people help me with the lights, more than 4 people help Rachel with the sounds, more than 6 people help Christopher with the set. And I think we have to pronounce that people all the time, because without them, we don't make theater. And we have 3 cameras guys there, so come on. We have
I know, and those people, when you look at how we've evolved with the camera work from the first show that we did with cameras until this one, I mean, it's like 50 years in Hollywood took place. It's almost as if we started out in the silent era with the memo, and we're suddenly in Technicolor with NGM in the 40s with our work now. So with what's going on with, and that's stuff that they've just learned themselves. And Christian Sidwell, who's really been manning the cameras on this, which is pretty incredible.
Yeah, I was going to say there's a big shout out to an alum and staff member, Christian Sidwell, who worked with John for months in advance to prep that work and the camera shots, and to really develop something that was much more dynamic and integrated into the process, which was really, I think, maybe one of the positive sides to all of this, is the ability to learn that new way of seeing and viewing and working together. So shout out to the crew.
When did they learn with Christian? I mean, it's a question I would ask Christian here, but I mean, tech rehearsal, you never think, okay, now we're going to have time for training a camera person.
So we had to integrate that into the production process. And I think we're still learning that, right? So if we continue, we're beginning to understand what that takes and how much time that they need to do that. But they worked very efficiently and effectively to really pick it up.
Yeah, we were students again together. I mean, it's the first time I work with one extra computer in front of me to see how the lights looks through streaming. So I was a student. I think everyone here was a student together again. So we were in the Willamette University learning.
For sure.
Yeah.
I would be pretty bored if I watched any show or was involved with any show with someone that thought that they didn't have to learn anymore. I mean, that's what makes theater work, is that everybody from the top to the bottom should feel like they have another step that they could go if someone will help them find the way. Any other shares that we have as we're winding down our hour here? I'm trying to figure out if Maya's been doing her homework this whole time while we've been talking. Are you multitasking that phenomenally?
No, I'm drawing. I can't sit still. I have to be doing something with my hands.
Well, we can go ahead if it doesn't look like there's any other questions. I will put a plug out there for just a couple things that are coming up. We have this show that runs through the 28th. There'll be an announcement that's going to be coming forward soon about Cradle Will Rock, which is for our subscribers. The dates for that, because of the filming, again, we're talking about the filming, the dates for that are going to be moving to the 29th of April through May 2nd. Those are going to be timed performances that happen online. So you'll be getting information about that. And then it's almost going to be a festival, because on the 30th of April, we're going to be opening our dance concert, Moving Forward Screen Dance. And that will, so the next two things that we have, unlike doing live streaming, they will all be on recorded format. And we're getting a little hug over there for Shelby, because Shelby, they are one of the choreographers for Moving Forward. Did you do any rehearsals at the same time? Were you doing any choreography and Bright New Boise at the same time?
Lots.
You were doubling up. You were running from one rehearsal.
Yeah. Yeah.
And also
We started pretty soon after Boise started rehearsing, so
you have not really given yourself time for senioritis.
Oh, no, I have.
Oh, good.
I'm neglecting everything else in my life other than things that have to do with art, so.
Oh, good.
As it should be.
Right on. And I will just make another shout out here while we're here. If anybody wants to pop over to YouTube, put in the word headband, one word, headband. It's an a cappella group at Willamette University that is entering the same competition as you see on the movie Pitch Perfect. And the guy with the lion mane that's laughing really hard, Truman, is the lead vocalist on their most amazing arrangement of an Alanis Morissette song, You Ought to Know, which is their entry to Pitch Perfect, if you will. It's also on the music website, so on the Facebook. So if you want to go over to the Facebook and hit Willamette Music Department, then you're going to see, and we've got some other members of the theater department that are in that group as well. So we share a lot of people. So I think that's all my artistic plugs for now, and all my thank yous. Anybody have anything else to share before we let you go into your next phase of life? All good? Very good. Okay, keep up with us, everyone. I think every one of you is on our mailing list, and if not, then make sure you are, and we'll keep entertaining you. Adios all.
Thank you.